Chapter 2. Video 2. You are not the body. Fear loses its grip. 2:11-2:20. Scene. The battlefield of Kurukshetra has gone strangely quiet. Just moments earlier, we heard the trembling voice of Arjuna refusing to fight. His bow, the mighty Gandhava, lies abandoned. His heart is heavy, his vision blurred with tears. And then, Krishna begins to speak. What unfolds here is no longer about two cousins fighting for a throne. It is the eternal dialogue about who we really are. Now pause for a second and reflect. How much of your identity is wrapped in your body? When you look in the mirror, do you see yourself, or just the changing shape of your body over the years? Comment below. Do you feel more connected to your mind, your body, or something deeper? This is not just Arjuna's crisis, it's yours and mine too. Because Krishna's first lesson in the Gita is not about war strategy, politics, or even morality. It is about the self. He doesn't give comfort food for the soul, he gives spiritual surgery. He doesn't say, "Don't worry, things will be fine." He says, "You are not this perishable body. You are the immortal Atman." Direct characters. Here stand the two direct characters. Arjuna, the greatest warrior of his time, collapsed in confusion, carrying the weight of family, duty, and fear. Krishna, the charioteer, but also the eternal guru, seizing this moment to lift Arjuna from illusion to wisdom. Indirect influences, yet hovering in the background are others, the elders Bhasma and Drona, who Arjuna cannot bear to kill, the Pandava's wife Draupad, whose honor sparked this war, the future generations whose destinies depend on this battle, and destiny itself, silent but powerful, pressing Arjuna to rise to his dharma. Seeds of philosophy to come. In these verses, 2:11-2:20, Krishna begins sowing seeds that will blossom into the entire Gita's wisdom. Atman, the eternal soul, unborn, undying. Sankhya, clear, reasoned knowledge that separates truth from illusion. Equanimity, the calmness that comes from knowing we are not the body. Karma yoga, hinted here, the soul acts through a body but is not reduced to it. Guru-disciple dynamic. Arjuna has surrendered, and Krishna begins the teaching. Krishna starts where all teaching must start, with identity. Before you can know what to do, you must know who you are. Then, this pause is sacred. All the noise of conch shells and war drums fades, leaving only the eternal dialogue between doubt and wisdom, between man and God. Arjuna has emptied his heart. Now Krishna, the friend who became the teacher, prepares to fill it with nectar. His opening blow is sharp. You grieve for what is not worthy of grief. He cuts through sentimentality and demands Arjuna to see, the soul cannot be slain, the body is temporary, and fear arises only when we confuse the two. Now, think of your own life. How much of your anxiety is tied to change? Wrinkles, health issues, aging parents, children leaving home, job security, even your own mortality. Imagine if tomorrow you were deeply convinced, I am not this body, I am consciousness itself. Wouldn't that shift how you look at every problem? Death would not be an end, just a doorway. Loss would not crush you because nothing essential can ever be lost. This is not theory. Modern psychology now echoes this truth. Identity beyond the body reduces anxiety and stabilizes mental health. Pause and ask yourself, if you are not your body, then who are you? Comment your answer below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Focus. Stabilize identity. Stabilize life. When your identity is anchored in the eternal Atman, the storms of life lose their grip. The fear of death, the panic of change, the sorrow of loss, these may shake the body and emotions, but not the self. Krishna's message is simple, yet revolutionary. Once you know who you are, you can face anything. So as we enter this next part of the Gita, keep this question alive in your heart. Am I ready to see myself not as this fragile body, but as the unshakable Atman? Scene 2:11. Grief for the imperishable. Scene. The stillness of the battlefield is pierced by Krishna's first words of teaching. Arjuna, slumped in despair, has just confessed his helplessness and surrendered as a disciple. Now, Krishna begins, not with soft consolation, but with a sword of truth. His words are sharp, unexpected. You grieve for those who should not be grieved for. Can you imagine Arjuna's shock? The great warrior expected sympathy, perhaps encouragement, but instead, he receives a rebuke. This is Krishna's way. Before giving nectar, he clears the poison. Before planting wisdom, he uproots illusion. Pause here. When was the last time a friend or mentor told you something uncomfortable but necessary? Did it sting first, but later open your eyes? Comment your experience, I'd love to hear. Then, this verse is a turning point. Krishna does not start with weapons, strategy, or morality. He begins by shaking the very foundation of Arjuna's thinking. Arjuna is grieving for the death of his elders, his teachers, his cousins. Yet Krishna tells him bluntly, the wise do not grieve for the living or the dead. Why? Because both living and dead are bound to the eternal self. To grieve over the imperishable Atman is ignorance. To cling to the perishable body as if it were eternal is delusion. This was the Gita's first blow against the illusion of mortality. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, surrounded by death, Krishna announces that the soul cannot die. Now, think of how often grief, fear, and anxiety dominate our modern lives. A parent worries endlessly about their child's future. A son or daughter is devastated by the death of a parent. We panic over aging, illness, and the uncertainty of tomorrow. But Krishna's teaching is timeless. If you anchor yourself in the truth of the eternal self, grief loses its grip. It doesn't mean you stop caring or feeling. It means you stop collapsing under the illusion that life is destroyed by death. Psychologists today talk about death anxiety as one of the deepest roots of human fear. Krishna cut that root 5,000 years ago. You are not the body. You are Atman, unborn, undying. Pause for a reflection. If you truly believed you were eternal, how would you face change, loss, and even death differently? Comment your answer. Your insight may inspire others watching this. Focus. Grief arises from illusion. Wisdom frees. Krishna's opening verse teaches us that sorrow is not a natural law. It is born of misidentification. When you see yourself as only a body, you are condemned to fear and grief. But when you know yourself as Atman, you live free, fearless, and anchored. This is not just Arjuna's lesson. It is humanity's. This verse is the door to freedom from sorrow. Scene 2.12. The eternal presence of the self. Scene. Krishna declares, "Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor these kings, nor will there be a time when we shall cease to be." Then, this statement explodes the narrow frame of war. It is no longer about just Kurukshetra, it is about eternity itself. Arjuna, drowning in grief over killing family and teachers, is reminded that the Atman, the self, is not born and does not die. What he sees as destruction is only the changing of clothes, the dissolving of temporary forms. Krishna doesn't deny Arjuna's compassion, but elevates it, turning fear into a doorway to higher truth. This is not a comfort blanket, it is a thunderclap of spiritual reality. Now, how much of our anxiety comes from clinging to what changes? Youth, relationships, possessions, status. We live as though everything we hold dear can vanish, and so we walk with invisible fear. But what if our true identity is untouched by time, loss, and decay? Imagine knowing that beyond your aging body, beyond roles like parent, professional, or friend, there is a self that neither came into existence nor will ever end. Would failure sting the same way? Would death terrify in the same way? Krishna's words are not abstract, they are a lifeline. Today, psychologists call it de-identifying with transient labels. The Gita calls it realizing Atman. Both point toward freedom. Focus. When you stabilize your identity in the eternal self, life stops feeling like a fragile performance and becomes an anchored journey. Anxiety fades because what is real in you can never be lost. Scene 213, the changing bodies. Scene. Krishna explains, just as the soul passes through childhood, youth, and old age in this body, so too it passes into another body at death. The wise are not deluded by this. Then, Arjuna sees only the horror of ending bodies, grandfathers slain, brothers bleeding. Krishna reframes it. Look closer. Haven't you already seen change? Wasn't Bhishma once a playful child? Isn't every warrior here a moving river of forms, infant, youth, elder, flowing seamlessly? If you can accept daily transformations, why resist the greatest transformation of all, death? To the wise, it is not an end, only another curve in the eternal journey. Krishna is shaping Arjuna's vision. See life not as broken pieces, but as an unbroken stream. Now, we grieve the passage of time, wrinkles on the face, gray in the hair, children leaving home. But pause. Are we not still the same witness within, the same I that was there in our childhood photographs? If we can accept the shift from school to college, from single to married, from working to retired, why not see death as another doorway? Modern science admits energy is never destroyed, only transformed. Krishna said it millennia ago about consciousness itself. The wise find peace not in denial of change, but in trusting the continuity beneath it. Focus. Train your eyes to see life as flow, not fragments. When you see change as natural, you stop clinging desperately and instead walk gracefully with time. Scene 2.14. Endure pleasure and pain. Scene. Krishna says, "O son of Kunti, the contact of senses with objects gives rise to cold and heat, pleasure and pain. They come and go. Endure them patiently." Then, on a battlefield, Arjuna's grief is overwhelming. But Krishna knows this is only one wave among many. Just as seasons change from winter chill to summer heat, emotions rise and pass. To act based on every surge of feeling is to be a slave. Dharma requires stability. By teaching endurance, Krishna is not dismissing Arjuna's pain. He is giving him armor, the armor of equanimity. Now, we live in a world obsessed with chasing pleasure and avoiding pain, whether through endless entertainment, consumerism, or numbing distractions. But the truth, no pleasure lasts forever. No pain stays forever. Can you recall a heartbreak that once felt unbearable, yet today feels like a memory? Can you recall a joy that once felt intoxicating, yet has now faded? Both came and went. Krishna's wisdom invites us to stop running, stop resisting, and simply endure. This isn't passivity. It is freedom. When emotions stop dictating your actions, clarity awakens. Focus. Pleasure and pain are weather. Yourself is the sky. Don't confuse the two. Endure, and you'll act from wisdom, not mood swings. Scene 2:15, the steady one. Scene. Krishna concludes this section. That person who is steady in pain and pleasure, whom these do not disturb, becomes fit for immortality. Then, the battlefield is chaos, dust, screams, trembling hearts. Yet Krishna points toward a different warrior, one who doesn't get unbalanced by victory or defeat, joy or sorrow. Such a one is not paralyzed by extremes, but stands steady, rooted in the self. This is the true strength Krishna wants for Arjuna. Greater than weapons, greater than strategy. The one who is even-minded becomes immortal, not because the body survives, but because consciousness is revealed as eternal. Now, imagine your own life. Workplace criticism, family disputes, financial ups and downs. Do these storms shake you endlessly? Or can you find an inner ground where both praise and blame pass like echoes? True strength is not in controlling outcomes, but in mastering responses. People today chase resilience training and emotional intelligence. Krishna described it perfectly thousands of years ago. Steadiness in the face of dualities. Focus. Real power is not avoiding ups and downs, but staying steady within them. Equanimity makes you unshakable, and therefore free. Scene 2.16, the real and the unreal. Scene. Krishna says, the unreal has no existence. The real never ceases to be. The seers of truth have concluded the same. Then, Arjuna is paralyzed by the seeming reality of the battlefield. Blood, corpses, broken chariots. To him, this is all too real, unbearable. Krishna pierces through. What seems real is not eternal. What is eternal never vanishes. Weapons, bodies, and circumstances belong to the realm of the temporary. The Atman, untouched by any of this, belongs to the eternal. The sages of old knew this distinction. Arjuna must learn to see beyond appearances, to perceive the substratum beneath forms. Krishna is teaching him metaphysics in the middle of war, because only this truth can dissolve crippling fear. Now, look around our own lives. Money in the bank, career milestones, reputation, the admiration or criticism of others. All of these feel overwhelmingly real. But give it a few years. That job will change, that face will wrinkle, that praise will be forgotten. What once defined your pride or pain will become a footnote. Isn't this proof that the realness of things fades? Krishna reminds us, what is unreal, temporary, comes and goes. What is real, the self, remains through all shifts. Even science affirms, the chair you sit on, the body you inhabit, are arrangements of particles, ever shifting, never static. To confuse the temporary for the real is to live in illusion. To know the difference is to taste freedom. Focus. Separate the changing from the changeless. Build your life anchored in the eternal self, not in fragile appearances. Scene 2.17, the all-pervading self. Scene. Krishna declares, "Know that to be indestructible by which all this is pervaded. Nothing can destroy this imperishable self." Then, Arjuna fears loss of family, of honor, of the world as he knows it. Krishna redirects his vision. All of existence is pervaded by the self. What dies is only the outer casing. The inner essence, the Atman, is indestructible. No arrow, no sword, no fire can touch it. Imagine the battlefield through this lens. What appears to be destruction is only change of forms. The warrior's true essence cannot be harmed. For Arjuna, this is not abstract philosophy. It is the only way he can act without drowning in despair. Now, we too live with constant fear of loss, fear of losing wealth, jobs, relationships, health. But if there is something in us that is utterly indestructible, why do we allow fear to rule? Think of space. Storms may shake the earth, but space itself remains untouched. That is what Krishna describes. Our true self pervades all. It is never threatened. This realization does not make us careless. It makes us courageous. Once you know the indestructible within, you can walk through life's battles with calm dignity. Modern psychology calls it the unshakable core. The Gita names it the Atman. Focus. Remember, nothing external can destroy the indestructible self. Fear dissolves when you anchor in this truth. Scene 218. Bodies perish, self remains. Scene. Krishna continues. These bodies are perishable. The embodied self is eternal, indestructible, and immeasurable. Therefore, fight. Then, Arjuna recoils at the thought of killing. How can he raise his bow against elders, teachers, cousins? Krishna clarifies, he can only touch their bodies, not their essence. Bodies are born to perish. The self, however, cannot be slain. For the warrior who sees clearly, acting according to dharma is not cruelty, but duty. The body is like a garment, temporary and fragile. The self is timeless and immeasurable. By reminding Arjuna of this, Krishna transforms guilt into clarity. Now, don't we also cling desperately to bodies, our own, our loved ones? Illness terrifies us, aging depresses us, death devastates us. Yet all along nature has shown us, bodies rise, grow, fade, and perish. To deny this is to fight reality itself. What is truly you is not the body, which changes every moment, but the awareness watching it all. When you hold this insight, grief softens. You can love fully, serve wholeheartedly, and yet accept loss with peace. Modern hospice workers often note, those who believe in something eternal suffer less at death. Krishna's wisdom is not fantasy. It is practical strength in the face of life's hardest truth. Focus. Bodies perish, the self remains. When you know this, death loses its sting and duty becomes clear. Scene 2:19. The self cannot kill or be killed. Scene. Krishna declares, he who thinks the self kills or is killed does not know. The self kills not, nor is it killed. Then, Arjuna's paralysis is rooted in guilt. I will be a killer of my kin. Krishna dismantles this misconception. The self cannot kill or be killed. Weapons can touch bodies, not the essence. To think otherwise is ignorance. Arjuna's compassion is noble, but misplaced. He grieves over illusions. Krishna, the teacher, pulls him back into clarity. Know the true nature of the self, and action will no longer be haunted by guilt. Now, many of us live with hidden guilt over decisions, over what we said or failed to say, over endings we could not stop. We carry these burdens for years. Krishna's words liberate. You are not the destroyer of souls, nor their savior. You cannot kill the eternal self. You cannot preserve it either. Recognizing this frees you from toxic responsibility. You still act responsibly, but without carrying false weight. Life's tragedies are not failures of your soul. They are the play of forms. Understanding this truth is not cold detachment. It is compassionate clarity. Focus. Free yourself from misplaced guilt. You are not the destroyer or the savior of souls. The self is beyond harm. Scene 220. The self beyond birth and death. Scene. Krishna reveals, For the self, there is neither birth nor death. It is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. It is not slain when the body is slain. Then, here Krishna crowns his teaching with thunder. Arjuna fears he will cause death. Krishna says, the self is never born, never dies. Bodies come and go like waves, but the ocean of self remains untouched. Arjuna must learn to see himself, Bhishma, Drona, and every warrior not as fragile flesh, but as eternal essence. Only then can he rise to his dharma as a warrior, free from crippling sorrow. Now, every fear of death is ultimately fear of losing existence. But Krishna dissolves it. You have never been born, you will never die. The body you identify with is just a chapter in a vast story. Think of yourself as the electricity flowing through many bulbs. The bulbs burn out, but the current continues. Science, too, affirms, energy cannot be created or destroyed. Spiritual wisdom goes further. Consciousness is the eternal current. When you know this, funerals become less about endings and more about transformations. Fear of your own death softens. You begin to live more courageously. Focus. You are unborn, eternal, beyond death. Live from this truth, and fear dissolves into freedom. Summary of 2.11, 2.20. You are not the body. Fear loses its grip. Scene. The camera of the Mahabharata lingers on Arjuna and Krishna at the heart of Kurukshetra. The conches are silent, warriors still poised, destiny waiting. Between 2:11 and 2:20, Krishna does something remarkable. He gently but firmly shifts Arjuna's identity. No longer is this just a warrior trembling before battle. Krishna places before him a truth larger than death itself. You are not the body. You are eternal. Then, these verses are the spinal column of the entire Gita. Until now, Arjuna's questions circled around family, society, and emotion. But Krishna begins with the timeless foundation, Atman, the self. He says, the wise do not grieve for the living or the dead. 2:11. Why? Because the Atman is unborn, undying, beyond sword or fire, untouched by water or wind. 2:12, 2:20. He paints images of permanence. The soul passes through bodies like we change garments. Death is not destruction, only transition. To Arjuna, drowning in despair, this was not just philosophy. It was a lifeline, a radical reframing of reality. Now, these verses echo in our lives every day. Think about it. How often do we define ourselves by our body, our appearance, our age, our successes or failures? We panic over wrinkles, dread sickness, or cling to identities like job titles, bank balances, or family roles. But here, Krishna whispers, that is not you. You are eternal consciousness. When we truly absorb this, fear starts losing its grip. The fear of death softens, the fear of change dissolves, and even the fear of loss becomes manageable. Modern psychology calls it shifting identity from the fragile to the resilient. The Gita simply calls it seeing the Atman. What if you lived one day with this conviction? Not, I am my job, my body, my role, but I am eternal awareness passing through experiences? How would your anxieties change? How much lighter would you feel? Focus. The core lesson from 2:11 to 2.20 is simple yet transformative. Stabilize your identity. Stabilize your life. Arjuna's collapse was not just physical weakness, it was identity confusion. He thought he was the grieving nephew, the emotional cousin, the lost warrior. Krishna cut through those illusions and said, no, you are the eternal self, playing a temporary role. In our own lives, when storms hit, loss of a loved one, failure in career, betrayal in relationships, we too collapse because we forget who we really are. But the moment we anchor identity in something deeper beyond body and circumstance, clarity returns. Just as Arjuna's courage will soon return, ours can too. So here is the takeaway. Your truest strength is not your muscles, not your titles, not even your emotions. It is the unshaken, undying presence within you. And once you stabilize there, fear bows down, change becomes a teacher, and life itself becomes less of a battlefield and more of a sacred journey.